Welcome to today's episode of the Ecommerce Revolution Podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world of e-commerce and uncover the tools and tactics that empower today's emerging entrepreneurs. Our podcast is part of our community with the same name. The community is geared to providing emerging e-commerce entrepreneurs with courses, content, and coaching to help you all launch and grow successful businesses. Check us out at ecomrevolution.co. Let's get things started. Welcome, everybody. We have a great topic for you today. Today, we're learning all about e-commerce marketplaces and how you can leverage them in your e-commerce strategy. E-commerce marketplaces have been around for a long time. That is, in internet years, of course. The first online e-commerce marketplace is widely considered to be eBay, which launched in 1995, originally under the name Auction Web, for any of you who want to look that up, and Amazon, which originally just started as an online retailer selling books, allowed third-party sellers to start selling products on its platform in 2000. From Amazon to Etsy to niche marketplaces you may not have even heard of, marketplaces are as hot as ever. In some ways, they are one of the best ways for an emerging e-commerce entrepreneur to launch a brand. Think about it, no major upfront costs, and in most cases, a built-in audience to sell your products to, which can reduce your marketing costs. I realize I'm simplifying things a bit, but you get the point. Our guest today is a bona fide expert on the topic of marketplaces, from making and selling hair bows at local farmers markets in 2012 to transitioning to sell on Amazon Marketplace to eventually recognizing the need to create a local online marketplace and launching her own platform. Our guest has touched so many sides of the marketplace business model. So, without any further ado, please welcome Cherie Edilson, the CEO of Member Marketplace, to the Ecommerce Revolution Podcast. Cherie, great to have you here today.
Thanks for me. Good to see you again.
Yes, of course, of course. Now, something you gave us in your intake notes, which I've heard this story because I've been on webinars with you in the past, was a snowy day in Iowa. Tell me about that snowy day in Iowa at that local farmers market that kind of opened your eyes to the need of building an online marketplace platform.
Yeah. So if you've been to Iowa in the winter, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes it's 70 degrees, and then the next day it is a blistery winter day. You can't get out of your driveway. And I had done a craft fair, signed up for a craft fair at the school. So it's about 3 blocks away from me. And they wanted to have a fair for kids to be able to buy gifts for their siblings for Christmas. So I had a bunch of product left over from summer farmers market. I thought this is a good way to get rid of like inventory that didn't sell. Everything had to be $5 or $10. And I went and set up the night before, got my booth ready, and then it snowed a whole bunch that night. And like you couldn't get out of your driveway kind of snow. So I took my minivan and I bustled through the 3 blocks because like it's not that far. Got to the school and waited for customers to come through. And it took an hour before we saw somebody walk through the door, and it came for one of the other vendors. And then with the next hour, and literally I think that was the only person that had come through the whole entire piece. And it was just somebody who was affiliated with another vendor there. And so it was about 3 hours into that 4-hour market. I think it was 4 hours. I called my husband and I said, put the boots on the kids. We have 4. They were little at the time. And I said, I don't care if they're still in their jammies, just bring them over to this market. We're going to shop from these businesses, because I have been to many a farmer's market, craft fair, something where you're there and you're just waiting around all day for customers to come. And you've built a lot in inventory, you prepared ahead of time, you bought extra product, maybe you stayed up all night making or baking things. And then just to have nothing happen, it's just such a disappointment. You're wasting the time with your family, all of the stuff that you might not be able to reuse again. And so we went over there and bought Christmas gifts that year for all of our family. This is for this grandma, this is for this grandma, this is for, whoever. And got to know the businesses as we were talking to them, like, oh my gosh, listen to this product, listen to their story about how they created this. And it was just, it felt really good to be able to shop from these businesses to support them. But then we thought there's got to be a better way than just relying on these one-day craft fairs and these farmers markets where lightning would hit my tent before and product, rain ruined your product. And so we left there figuring out if there was a way that we could help these craft businesses sell online. And so I was already selling online through my own website. My husband was a web developer. He had built it for me in my very first, month or two. And then I was dabbled in some like Etsy and some of those, and then also was selling pretty well on Amazon and had other avenues. So we thought, can we help these businesses learn how to sell online? Again, this was in late 2016, early 2017 when we were first trying to help businesses. So before pandemic, before businesses even totally realized they needed to get online, we were teaching them what goes into a product description and what is SEO and how to take product photos and all of those things, and trying to help these small local businesses get aligned together and make it easy to shop and discover who exists already in your own community.
Wow. I love that story. Each time you tell it, I kind of think about, what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and you really do anything you can to help not only, yourself, but those who are, in your community and those who are around you. It's just a very helping situation because you want to win, right? You want to get to the finish line. How many marketplaces, because it started out with one in Iowa. Now, how many marketplaces are there around the country?
We started out with one just here in our own town. And then we thought, gosh, we could do this in other communities. So at the time, we didn't know what a startup was. We weren't trying to grow something. We were just trying to help these businesses in our community. And then there was a startup accelerator that we ended up joining and started working with like chambers of commerce and Main Streets, then eventually SBDCs. So we've operated over, I think, 50 marketplaces across the US. So some were just pandemic wide, and they happened just during that time frame as we were helping certain businesses get online. Some have continued, since that time. We have some that have started in our very first year that are still going now. So really trying to help whichever communities and the partner that we're looking for to help their small businesses get online together.
And if I'm an e-commerce entrepreneur and I want to get on one of your marketplace platforms, how do I do it? Where do I go?
So go to Member Marketplace Inc. On there, we have listed our e-commerce sites, what communities we're in. Mm-hmm. Right now, you have to belong to whichever community you're in. So if we're in North Dakota, you can go and join Shop North Dakota, but you also will become a member of the SBDC at that time or a client of the SBDC. We're also working on a new one, though, where sometimes we don't want to wait for a partner in that community. Can we do a local one? So coming soon, there will be a direct-to-business one, too, that maybe doesn't have to rely on a partner in that community before we can start helping those businesses. So
nice.
The next month or so, you'll see a release on that.
That's fantastic. Well, we'll definitely put the link to Member Marketplace Inc. in the show notes so everybody who's interested can click on it. So are you ready to dive into the world of e-commerce marketplaces and talk about the details and help some of these emerging e-commerce entrepreneurs that are part of our community really understand what it is? Well, let's start with that first of all. What is a true definition of a marketplace?
Oh, gosh. I use the farmer's market example because I think it's a tangible version and that's my background and my history. But if you think about a farmer's market, you have multiple different businesses, tons of different types. You might have a haribo seller, you might have vegetables, you might have a craft maker, beer, whoever are coming down and descending on that market from 7 a.m. till noon. And customers are coming because they can come and shop from multiple different businesses at one time, one location, and leave with all of their goods in that same day. And so an e-commerce marketplace is just that plaza online 24/7, where it's whatever the platform is, whether they're all uniquely identified. Maybe it's a local version like we're running. Maybe it's Amazon or Etsy or eBay, some of these other larger marketplaces, Poshmark or these individual ones. But it's one platform to be able to go shop, discover, and buy from multiple different businesses with one cart checkout and really provide that ease of use for the end consumer. They don't have to go to multiple different websites to shop.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the word marketplace tends to get thrown around a lot as different things, but that's a perfect definition of what it is. And why do you think marketplaces like Amazon and Etsy? And I mentioned that there's an ease of launch, I guess, in some ways. In your opinion, what makes them so popular? It's been so long since they've been around. What makes them still so popular?
It's the consumer convenience, I think. It's a lot of effort, whether you're going into one individual store, physical, and walking down your main street. Think of how many times you have to go through that physical store and you're shopping around and you're looking through there and you find, one or two goods there. Then you walk to the next store, you find 2 or 3 goods, check out again, walk to the next store. That's a lot of effort. And then the same token, even if you're at home and online, doing that from multiple different businesses' websites, that's still a lot of effort. And especially in our side, as we talk about shopping and supporting local businesses, a lot of times they're putting the onus back on the consumer to go and shop local and support local, but it's still difficult to do because there's so many different websites and there's so many different physical stores and you don't know what they have ahead of time. So how do we help make it even easier for consumers? That's what marketplaces offer. One site, browse from a larger product expansion that you maybe wouldn't have if you're going to one physical or one website, and buy easier with more convenience.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I, the big ones, right? The Amazons, the Etsy's, the eBays, some of those out there. But I mentioned that a lot of these niche marketplaces, such as what your approach is considered a niche, and there are many other niche. Why do you think that's happening? Is it a backlash against the big players out there? Is it just because that's just how things happen? They go from big to niching down a little bit. What's your opinion on that?
I think there's a little bit of all of that. So I think there is a little bit of a backlash against the larger players. We just as consumers in general, or even, small businesses, we realize that the bigger something gets, the more it's taking commissions out of yours, the more you're getting diluted in your sales, the harder it is to find your products. And then consumers too, is that you don't always feel this intrinsic good. Sometimes when you're shopping on Amazon, you do it because it's out of need, but it's like, is it making you feel warm and fuzzy on the inside when you're doing it? No, but you need whatever you want by, Tuesday versus Saturday. And some of these niche marketplaces are really identifying with the customer. So you'll see sustainable product marketplaces where they're all built around the sustainability of product. And if that's important to you, that's a marketplace you might choose to go and shop and discover your products. If it's important to you to support local communities and the businesses that are helping to grow and keep your towns unique and vibrant, then you might choose to shop on a local marketplace. If you, really want vegan items and you're looking for, vegan baked goods or whatever the product, you might go to a vegan baked goods marketplace where you can still have a wider variety of offerings, but it's really speaking to who that customer is, and it's identifying with that customer a little bit more.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, and I mean I love it, and I think I like to call it the love-hate relationship with Amazon. You love it as a consumer because you can have it here by Tuesday, as you mentioned, but as an e-commerce entrepreneur, there are definitely some frustrating elements because it is so big and so rigid. Sometimes looking to these niche marketplaces and also finding your ideal customer in those niche marketplaces is definitely an area. So if I'm an e-commerce entrepreneur and somebody who's just starting out, I'm emerging, I'm ready to build out my launch strategy. I mean, what kind of factors in this day and age should I consider when getting myself set up on a marketplace? And we won't even say any specific marketplace. Is there a game plan that you can put in place in this today?
So if we're not talking about a particular marketplace, but I would say in general, have a different customer base for the most part, who they're speaking to and what kind of products you have. So if we have even on the one we've worked on together, but other of our marketplaces, we have a lot of vintage product-based businesses. You might work better on eBay. If you've got handcrafted items, you might work better on Etsy or some of these local crafted ones. If you're looking to sell some old apparel that you used to wear, maybe Poshmark or something is good for you. So just really identifying who's going to buy your products, what marketplace to start on if you've never done it before. But then some of the ins and outs, like what does the pricing strategy look like? How much does it cost for you to get set up? Some of these have an upfront fee. Some have an every item listing fee. So how much is it going to cost you to get initially set up as well? And then from there, it is just devising what products you want to sell. We recommend on our side, sometimes we work with a brand new business, what items do you have the most inventory of? If you've got one product and one item and it takes you a really long time to describe it and it's got a very niche customer base, are you going to have to wait for the SEO to come in and somebody to find your particular product to go to that marketplace then to go find it? Or do you have, 30 or more of a particular item that has a good customer base, or that there's a target customer that's looking for it? I would say start with one you have more inventory of and a higher customer base versus this more niche product. And then there's just some basics. And that's really where our platform, where we go through, it's establishing a base, because whatever you learn through our platform, you can take and apply to your own web store. Should you be able to do that to another marketplace? It's the basics on your product title, your product photography, your description, picking a category, and your price. Like that's the basics of the meat and potatoes that you really need to understand. And then it's like building those out a little bit more. So your title, why is that important? It's one of the factors that impacts SEO when somebody's looking for that. Even when they're in the marketplace and they see your title, Does it make them want to click on it? Is it identify with the product itself? So I always say an example is like a blue shirt. Like, no, there's tons of blue shirts out there. What kind of blue shirt is it? Is it a women's blouse that's blue and white striped with 3 buttons and a tie? Is it just getting more descriptive in your title, helping people understand what it is that goes along with that photo that they'll see right away? Building out your product description and having maybe a short paragraph, some bullet points. You can go into a bigger description further. We talk about if you need to, making sure it's in the right category. So if somebody's looking for shirts, it's in the women's apparel shirt category versus, some other one. And then that price, making sure your price is kind of right based on the other products that are out there and where yours fits in that realm.
Yeah, in many ways there's lots of crossover. I would assume you would agree on just what you do on your own online store. But then there are these other things that you have to pay attention. There's a lot of distraction on these marketplaces when you're on there. You're there for a product, but you've got things flying at you on the right-hand side, left-hand side, up at the top, really trying to get you to these other parts of the platform. And if you can keep people focused, and I think we share this common notion that photography really does matter. And I know Amazon, for example, puts a lot of pressure on photography. They don't just let you come on and put something, whatever you want up there. That first image has to be the white background. It's so important. It just, in this day and age, with a cell phone, you can take a very good picture. If you're not an editing expert, hire a very good editor online and, get something out there. So that's good. Really focusing in on those things you have control over, right? Really is essentially what you're saying. Now, something that always comes up, when I work with e-commerce entrepreneurs is, do I, when they're launching their own store, should I expect a sale? How quickly am I going to make money? And on a marketplace, on average, what would you say, should they expect sales right away, or should they expect this to build it and they will not come because they're going to have to put in that extra effort of marketing and, pushing that product out there on social, things like that? What's your thought on that?
I think it's really a mix of both, and then it also depends on the platform. Maybe I'll just give a few examples.
Yeah, please.
I think Amazon, when I first got on Amazon, I think I had my first sale the next day. And I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing. Look at this." And it was a girl's cheer hair bow. I don't remember which one it was, but my cheer hair bows at that time, they were always like school colors. So people were looking for a school color hair bow. So red and white striped, red and white paw print. So if there's a school that had a paw print logo and was also red and white, that spoke to them. Trademark stuff that I'll go into maybe later, but that's a whole other ball game and people need to be aware of. But just maybe really having a product that identified with a certain target market. And so whether you have a product that identifies with nurses or whoever, like if people are looking for that item and your item speaks to them, the image goes well, and there's not a ton of overwhelming traffic that's already going to it, you can probably expect a sale pretty soon on a larger marketplace. And it's important to understand your pricing and what you'll get at the end of that, because that's a separate one. Some of our marketplaces that we're working on are newer, and we're working with newer entrepreneurs who are just getting online for the first time, and we're trying to teach everybody at the same time and get them up and going. And so our marketplaces are typically either free or very low cost to businesses. And so there's not as much marketing pushed into them because we kind of work with our partners on what they're doing. And we're looking for that marketplace effect. So every business going out and communicating with their consumers as well and saying, hey, I'm online through this platform, and kind of bringing in that shared aspect into there. So if everybody's helping to market and bring back consumers, then ideally that customer base builds up over time on our marketplaces. But it depends if you currently have customers or if you don't. So if you don't have any customers yet, you're not even really sure who your target market is, how your product or description is speaking to consumers. That's where we start with is like, that's your first goal, is figuring out who wants your product, because then that's going to guide how you title your product. It's going to title your photo or even the secondary photos, and your target customers see themselves in those photos. In the description, does it help them understand that? And then are we waiting for SEO to naturally build up and bring people back to that product? Or are you going out and helping to do any promotion through social media or your own self? Or if the site has sponsored products or some of those too, can you help to get additional visibility in there? I know I got my first sales through Amazon, but they were kind of like teetering here and there. Maybe a sale here, a sale here. And it was, a few sales a week. I had to eventually pay to get my product seen by consumers. So everybody else is sponsoring their products. And when everybody else starts to do that, you have to pay to get your product sponsors to get them pulled up higher in the search results, because people are only going to go so far a lot of times in the tabs to find what they want. So just understanding your customer, where they're at, and if you need to pay to get seen, or you're going to do some of that marketing on your own side.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting concept there, is that you really need to be involved too, and I think the marketplace wants you to be involved out there, pushing, right? Getting other people, pulling people back in. But speaking of advertising, they've all the big ones have launched ad platforms on there, and I think ad platforms account for a huge portion of their business as well. So now you're running ads to try to get trying to get traffic to your product on their platform, and they're taking a commission, which I think maybe leads to some animosity maybe in that side of things. But it is part of a natural marketing game plan. Advertising, however you do it, has to be done. I think it's safe to say, don't just put up a product these days and expect it to sell. You need to be either involved or running ads, and really pushing. But that's fascinating. I bet you were very excited that day when you saw that sale that got you going, right? It's like, wow, there's an opportunity here. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I use the example a lot of times as going back to farmers markets again. But I never did a farmers market where I didn't tell my current consumers that I was going to that farmers market, even though it was online, even though I was selling on Amazon. Whichever channels I was on, I told my consumers that I was there, because maybe they were heading down Saturday and that was the reason that pushed them over, because they had to find something for a wedding or an event coming up. So just letting even your current customers know where they can buy your products for convenience or ease, whether it's online, whether it's in person, whether it's down at the market, whether it's on a marketplace, just giving them that information to be able to go and buy it however they want to.
I think of that, you're speaking of simply just opening up an email and maybe putting all your friends in a BCC and just say, I'm so excited to announce that I've launched on XYZ marketplace, and I would love for you to just check out and support wherever you can. And something that simple, or maybe post it on social media, get the word out there, get things rolling, get that one sale, get that first sale in there, and then you'll see how great you feel, and then roll with that into other sales, hopefully. Yeah. What about managing inventory? How did you deal with, managing inventory, and what these days, are there really good tools that people can rely on? Let's say they're selling on Amazon and maybe Etsy and their own online store. What are, how are people managing inventory?
Gosh, there are some good online tools, and I don't have an exact recommendation, but Google them. There are some ones, depending on what you're selling in through, it can push your products to different marketplaces too. Some like Shopify, or even your own web stores, you can push them to different ones, and it can manage that full back-end inventory. On our marketplaces, we do have an integration with Shopify and Square, so we can pull in your inventory, we can sync it between there, and if it pulled from your Shopify storefront, it'll reduce inventory in our marketplace. And that's really convenient for those who are selling in store, who are selling at markets, who are selling through a marketplace, making sure that it can kind of manage your inventory for you. If you're not there yet, that's okay. We have some who are managing it with stickers on their product. So they put a sticker on it and they say, this I have on my online store. If somebody comes up to check it out, they remove that sticker there, and then later they go and drop it off online. Myself, when I used to do markets, I would pause my Amazon inventory before I would go do a market. And so I would pause it that Friday night. I knew what I had. Then that Saturday morning, I would go and sell it. And then I'd come back and update my inventory on my website and Amazon after that farmer's market with what I still had available. So there's ways to manually do it.
I love that.
It doesn't have to be hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be big.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many there's so many tools for everything, and I think we all, it's easy to get enamored by those tools, and I need this software, I need that software. Just launch, just get the thing going, and use some of these simple, inventory management tactics that you're mentioning. Just get it going, and you can add on complicated things and complex things down the road. How about customer service? How is that, handled? I know Amazon has some very strict policies. You can't, you don't see an email address for the person. Everything is, all the contact is through the platform. How much customer service time did you have to put into when you were on the marketplace? And I guess some of the entrepreneurs that are on your different platforms, are they having to put in a lot of extra customer service time?
What I recommend is setting up your storefront well in the beginning, and that's less time you're going to have to do on the customer service end later on. So whatever your policies are listed in there, be clear. So if you say you're going to deliver your products within 5 days of ordering, 2 days of ordering, do that. Package up your orders, communicate with the customers, send them the tracking notice, allow them to be able to track that order and follow it. Because most customer service that we see on our side is a consumer saying, "Hey, I ordered this on X date. I haven't received an update yet." The customer, we always say, put yourself in the customer's shoes. That's the basis of customer service when you're selling online. You want to know when your order's coming. Maybe you're giving it for a gift, or you have it for a party, or whatever the reason is. You want to know when it's coming so you can do X, Y, and Z with it. That's the very basis. Communicate that, share that tracking number. If you clearly state that it comes with X, Y, and Z, put X, Y, and Z in the package. Over communicate. So thank you for your order right away when you get it, that communication notice, and then set a follow up. Hey, did you like your product? Let me know what you liked about it. Is there anything that wasn't as expected? Because that can change your policy. That can maybe help you iterate on your product that you didn't think was a problem, but until they told you, oh gosh, the clip fell off right the first time I put it on my daughter. That would make me send a new hair bow and adjust the glue that I'm using in the back and understand like, okay, that didn't work. So asking for feedback, being over communicative, I think is going to eliminate almost all of that customer service problems. And for me, it wasn't a big deal. And for businesses that are doing it really well, we see them, they're the ones that are over communicating. The ones that maybe are having more problems are the ones that put a timeline in there and then didn't meet it. The customer reaches out to them and they don't reply. And then that's when you're going to come back in and get a negative review. That's when you might start to get kicked off of marketplaces and some of those things too, because the marketplace themselves wants customers to go to Amazon, go to our website, go to whichever marketplace and have a good experience. And if you have regular repeat vendors or sellers who aren't meeting their own set expectations, let alone the marketplaces, then you're likely to get dinged or kicked off there too. So just making sure that you're following through on what you say. It's part of just being a good person in general, but being a good business person, I think, is that basis.
I love the fact that you're taking, the idea of, paying attention, asking questions, and learning from, this is an area of fear for a lot of entrepreneurs, is to ask questions, right? What did you think of? Because it could be a negative answer that comes back, but you're coming at it from the standpoint of, boy, the changes you can make to your product, make your product even better by asking those questions. And listen, everybody loves to be asked, on the other side, as a consumer, if a brand reached out to me and said, hey, listen, just want to get your opinion. We just launched, that particular product that you purchased, and we'd love to get a little feedback. I mean, I would love to be a part of that. It's almost like I'm part of their process of getting better. And I love it. So I love that you brought that up, and it's something that definitely entrepreneurs should do wherever, marketplaces, online store. In the early days, you have to ask questions. You have to. So tell me, I look at this and I say, the e-commerce, e-commerce has leveled the playing field, I think, for the most part, where small businesses can now compete with large businesses. Do you see that same thing happening? And I look at it a lot from the standpoint of an online store. I can build an online store on Shopify with some of the same great technology that Amazon has. I can source products. Do you see that same thing happening in the marketplaces? Can a small brand still make it when there are larger brands maybe selling something similar?
Yeah, I think it goes with just business in general, but I think it takes having an idea. It takes doing it. It takes iterating on it. It takes listening to your consumers. It takes persistence. A lot of times the people that don't succeed or don't push through, it's just either they started with a bad product and maybe there wasn't a niche for it, but a lot of times it's not continuing with it. It's dabbling a little bit here, oh, that didn't work. And then dabble a little bit here, oh, that didn't work. And then dabble a little bit here, and like, oh, that didn't work. And maybe finding blame, it's on Amazon, or it's this marketplace, or it's my website, I couldn't do it, or it cost too much. Just sticking with something and pushing it and trying to make it bigger and better each day, I think is that battle. I think is not quitting early on.
Yeah. But never in history has this been, this opportunity has been afforded to entrepreneurs to be able to do that. You could launch tomorrow and take on, the giants. You may not have the marketing budget to do it, but the same marketing budget that they have, but you could be scrappy. You can do some of these things that we're talking about today. So
you can do things that the big guys can't do too.
Right. Because they're not nimble.
Yeah. You can
Yeah.
get on TikTok. You can find your direct customers. You can watch their videos and speak to their heart of what they're doing.
Right.
And it's you have some other advantages that maybe the big players don't have.
And that's a great point because while the big players maybe they may have to have 10 meetings to figure out their TikTok strategy and who's going to go on camera, who's going to do what, and we should hire this agency. You're already making the videos and already up
Mhm.
there, promoting. Um, so one thing we like to teach in the e-commerce revolution community is about this omni-channel. You can't just be in one place, right? You have to do with it. You have to build. You have to go where your customers are. And a well-rounded, whether you start, let's say you start on a marketplace first. Let's say you start on Etsy, but eventually you're probably going to want to launch your own online store. Maybe it's on Shopify, maybe it's on Wix, maybe it's on Squarespace. How do you see that integration? You mentioned that your platforms integrate with Shopify, making that inventory management, very possible, which is a huge time saver. I mean, I've heard many entrepreneurs talk about how important this is and how great it is. What else should I, take into consideration when I have my online store and a marketplace? Should I be selling the same products in both places? Should I manage my inventory differently? How should I? What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I'm always a fan of expanding as much as you can for the time. So if right now you can only start on one channel because you're just figuring out what you're doing and you don't even know what sells and you don't even know who's going to buy your product, start there and start to get some of that messaging, the product imaging, those things right. But as soon as you're able, add another channel. It could be a physical channel, it could be a farmer's market, because then you're getting direct face-to-face customer information about your product. It could be a pop-up shop in your hometown. It could be dabbling on Amazon or eBay or Etsy or Poshmark. Your products might look the same if you have enough inventory and you think you have a wide appeal. You might dabble different, especially if you're trying to manage inventory. Maybe you've got these 5, 10, 25 products on this marketplace. You've got these 25 on another, these 25 of another. You're going to learn a little bit because the customers who come and who shop from them and how even in like the SEO search rankings, maybe they didn't start on Etsy, but whatever they put in pulled up Etsy's ranking over your platform's ranking and they found that sooner. So I think dabbling as much as you can, do different inventory in the different marketplaces if you need to, and try to have that obviously identify with whichever marketplace that is, if there's a certain product that speaks better to that customer there. But always expand and test out multiple channels, because maybe your Etsy strategy is really working, but your own Shopify store, it's tanking. It's costing you a lot of money each month. You're not keeping up with what it needs to do. You're not marketing it very well, but your Etsy store is starting to take off. Put a little bit more effort in there, figure out why Etsy is working too, and then come back and iterate on your Shopify store. Or maybe you don't want to keep up Shopify. You're going to switch to Wix if it's a little bit more affordable, or, like it's okay to try some things and then go back and see what's working, what's not, push more emphasis on what is. But I also don't want somebody to put their entire eggs in one basket, whether it's our marketplace, start here, expand. Whether it's Etsy, start there, expand. Jane.com was a really good marketplace. I had shopped on there sometimes too myself. It was a women's marketplace to go and buy a lot of different products from businesses. They just all of a sudden went out of business right before the holidays last year. And all of these sellers were left with tons of inventory, tons of product. I think it's coming back. But I know there's some that were just exclusively Jane sellers. And when stuff like that happens, it can affect your whole entire business. Or Amazon all of a sudden shuts you off one day because they have a competing product and all of your products go down. I just think as much as possible, diversify. Don't put everything in one basket, whether it's your own website, whether it's just farmers markets, whether it's a marketplace. Go and expand and do as much as possible that you can still control. So if you're starting to have bad customer experience, you might need to pull back. But as much as you can, I think it's definitely worth putting eggs in different baskets and trying them out.
That's a phenomenal point. And I think, most of these big marketplaces, and, I'll exclude yours, from this mix, is you don't own the customer. You don't even see the customer. In your marketplaces, you definitely see the customer. So if they go down, like you mentioned, Jane.com, I mean, that's devastating. I mean, if you were just, for the sellers who were just on that one platform, that just ruined their entire business and they have to quickly scramble. So it is a great point. I mean, diversification, but you paying attention at the same time of where it's working, right? What is working? And, it's the 80-20 rule, I guess, in some ways. You're putting your attention to the right things because that's what's generating profit, but you still have this other thing that's working a little bit over here where you can shift attention immediately if something went wrong on a platform, a marketplace platform. Great advice on
Thanks
that.
to the
That's
pandemic and
yeah.
retailers, that's where we came in. But if they had all of their effort just in the retail store, and then the pandemic, made them close their store for
Right.
3 months, and they haven't yet been online, they didn't even know how to get online, didn't even have a website.
Hmm.
That's a whole big undertaking. So if they already had a website set up and had some products kind of dabbling, the ease of transitioning and switching more products online or doing that was much easier than figuring out that whole entire strategy. So yeah,
Yeah.
80/20, I think, great,
I
great
love it.
effort.
Yeah. I know my wife had to jump into live selling, jump on and even, nothing sophisticated other than the iPhone, FaceTime, and let's get on with a few customers who want to buy this, that, and the other. And let's walk the empty store by herself with a mask on. So yes, adapting and being able to jump in is a huge, huge component. And, I guess you're scrappy, right? As an entrepreneur, you're making things happen. So tell me, shift a little bit and talk about, I think every marketplace we've mentioned has been US based, but there's a big rise in Chinese retailers adding on marketplaces, the Sheins, the Temus, and some people call it Temu, are opening up their platform for third party sellers, really taking on Amazon. Right. Any thoughts on this? I mean, are you seeing this? Are you hearing about this? Or is it still very new and it really hasn't, saturated the e-commerce landscape yet?
I haven't seen it from the retailers or businesses that we're working with yet that they are starting to add that on. If anything, it's more of a nervousness that some of the really discounted products that maybe are coming in from China are then competing with the retailers there. But I think it's good to pay attention to, and it's good to possibly start dabbling in. I remember Gary Vaynerchuk, uh, entrepreneur, back when TikTok first came out, and he's like, I'm not on here doing the dances, but I'm tons of people are starting to flock to this platform and I'm going to figure it out. And so being one of the first to figure out a platform, I think, is really advantageous. So if you got on TikTok in the beginning, you started building a following, some of those people have millions and millions of followers now who are just checking in their life updates and follow their product recommendations and things. So if there's a new opportunity to get involved in something, start it, dabble it, see if you like it, see if it gets you any traction. I think it's definitely always worth pursuing, whether it's here or overseas based. But we do see more entrepreneurs getting their products in TikTok Shop and doing some of that now, which I think is helping to grow their following in a different
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I had read that, I don't know if this is, absolutely true or not, that, Amazon is paying very close attention to both of those platforms because they're even adding on fulfillment. They're growing very quickly. And yeah, they do have a bit of a reputation of that, fast fashion for Shein. And, Temu is, you buy something that costs $2 because you spun the wheel and you got something that may not fit. And I think that's, to the point of you made earlier of making sure you understand, you don't have to be on every marketplace. You should be on the marketplaces where your customers are. Now, Amazon's a bit of an exception because everybody's on every buyer that you can think of is probably on Amazon and you'd be able to find them. But especially as you start to get into these niche marketplaces and these emerging marketplaces, really understand, why should I be there? Do I need to be there? Is it really important? It might sound really shiny at first, and let it evolve too. Dabble in it, as you mentioned, maybe keep a close eye on it, watch it, but focus on the areas that matter to your business and that can make a big difference to your business. I'm very intrigued by what's coming, and it seems that technology has gotten easier. The things that Amazon took years to build, you've got Temu spinning these things up in seconds, and
Mm-hmm.
that can be frightening. That can
Yeah.
be definitely very, very frightening out there.
One
So
of our
yeah.
coworkers that talked about this lucky scoop that was on TikTok. And I was like, what is lucky? I'm in my 40s. And so I'm finally getting on TikTok and trying to learn the platform
Uh-huh.
because it's important for what we do. But I was like, what is this lucky scoop? And why do you care so much? She's like, there are thousands of people watching this lucky scoop where they
Wow.
just dip a bucket in these like random goods that you probably wouldn't want or wouldn't need, but they're doing it
Unbelievable.
live in front of you, scooping up like a bunch of weird things and then saying, Cherie, this is your box and we're sending it to you. And then you get to see all the things that they picked up live in front of you. Why is that working? Why do people care?
Wow.
Maybe it's more of just fascinating, but is there some aspect that you can
Hmm.
take and put into your business or into your live selling or what you're doing? Just learn from what's working and why. And see how you take that and adapt it to what
That's
you're doing.
such that is, and I'm gonna have to check that out because I could see that it plays a little bit into the mystery box concept, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're seeing it, the scoop, but you don't exactly know everything that fell in there, and it's that anticipation of wow, and it's being done live. And I know that TikTok, favors a lot of that live, and obviously they have their own e-commerce platform. They decided to forget about everybody else. We're going to build our own, and it's just fascinating, smart. Pay attention to all of these things, I think is what Cherie's saying. Watch what's happening out there because you may need to be a part of it. It may affect your business. And let's talk about you've achieved success from the day that you decided to start member marketplace and launch these platforms, these marketplace platforms. Tell me, what's like the top piece of advice? You probably speak to a lot of entrepreneurs on a regular basis. And I'm a new entrepreneur, I'm an emerging e-commerce entrepreneur. I'm looking for some guidance, out there. What would you tell me that would help me succeed, especially in the world of marketplaces?
I would say, oh gosh, aside from the basics that are already established, let's put those aside, the product photography, descriptions, titles, those basics. I would say consistently showing up, whether it's on social media to be able to promote to wherever your products are sold, whether it's adding new products regularly. I know over the weekend we had a business that wrote in and said, gosh, I haven't had any sales on this platform. I launched in over 3 years ago, or she hasn't had very many, or whatever. So I took a peek at her products. They're so niche that they only fit a few people. And she uploaded them in 2021 and hasn't logged back into her store since 2022. And has never updated products, has never reached out to customers. I don't know if what she's done on her social media. If you're so niche that your customers can't identify and find it, because by now SEO would have been going to those products, but there's probably not people clicking on it very often, and they're not going to find it. And while it's in the marketplace, it's getting buried by the new products that are coming in daily on that marketplace. And so, how do you stay alive and thrive? It's just by coming back weekly, monthly at the very least, but updating your product inventory, adding new products, changing out your main product photo if that's not getting you clicks and attention, changing that out for a different one, updating your title. There's some basics that you can do to kind of try and test. But I would say it's consistent improvement, consistent interaction, consistent engagement on social media or your email list. Build an email list. So many entrepreneurs are not doing email lists, especially these newer ones. That is we give you the customer's information. You can build your own email list off of our marketplace, and people who have shopped from you have visited your shop. Just being able to reach out to them and tell them you've got 5 new items listed, come back and explore these. It's consistency, I would say, is my number one thing.
No, that's show up every day. I think is huge, and the world of email marketing is near and dear to me. I mean, that's a missed opportunity, and there's so many ways to do it as well. I mean, yes, you have some restrictions in some of these marketplaces where you can't, get the email address, you can't communicate directly to them, but there are ways to, do it in other platforms and just build in your own online store. As well. And maybe you decide to launch something different inside of one of the marketplaces. You're not going to let people know you have that email address now. It is owned marketing. You own it. So I love that. So as we wrap things up, I'm curious to know if you were going to launch a business, if you were, you are an entrepreneur, if you were going to launch an e-commerce business today, which marketplaces or which one marketplace would you choose? I mean, given, again, go back to, it probably depends on the product that you're going to sell, but which ones do you love? Which ones stand out as really top performers in your mind?
You've probably heard it already, but I'm getting a little bit fascinated with TikTok Shop.
Yeah.
That's one I'm watching right now, just like what's happening. Why are people buying? There's both the products that are happening in there, but then the influencer aspect, but they're not even influencers. They're just regular people who can buy your product at a discount, promote it, and then get a little kickback. I think just that whole ecosystem right now is super interesting to me. And so figuring out what to launch in there. You could even start, even if you're not an entrepreneur, but you could start building up a following and start to recommend some products, seeing how it works, seeing what that kickback looks like. So when you do launch your own products into the marketplace, that you've got an idea of that ahead of time. So I think that one's super interesting to me right now. I still like the print on demand versions. So whether you use Printful or Printify, but it's got to have your own kind of unique touch and spin on it. So we've seen some businesses who are just creating, you look at it and it's obvious, like, oh, it's just somebody's a random logo or something they put on there, and it's got the same just generic shirt, and it's, shown in that 854 versions of the same logo just on different products, and it's not really identifying there. I think creating your own product, niching them out, but then having that third party still fulfill it. So keeping that, what makes it unique and intrinsic, and not going to get it from somebody else. But you actually don't have to go and fulfill it and send it to the customer, I think is, I don't want to manage inventory on my own site anymore. That was something I was like, I'm going into a service-based business.
Right.
I'm done with inventory and all of the clutter that it takes up in my house.
Yeah.
So that's also really interesting to me
I
too.
love it. I love it. Well, we actually episode 2 of the season, we'll put a link to it. We had an agency owner come on who specializes in TikTok shops, and I too am fascinated by this. Where this is going. I love that they took that approach of, we're just going to do it ourselves. We don't need you, Shopify. We don't need you, anybody else. We are going to build it end to end, and especially around the discounting, some of the discounting things that they do, where merchants don't even have to, it doesn't come out of pocket in some situations. Absolutely amazing. And I guess what you were saying about Gary Vaynerchuk, get in early. And this is early days for TikTok shops, especially. This is a time to experiment. If it fits, your model, if it's, if it works for your business, and experiment, test. Maybe it's not right, but you won't know until you try.
Definitely.
Well, we've got one final question for you, and this is we like to wrap everything up with this one final question, and it is on AI, because AI is the hottest topic in town these days. I'm just curious, if you probably use it in some way in your business on maybe on a daily, weekly basis. What have you discovered? What's that one thing that you maybe have discovered lately that you just had a moment, you stopped and you said, wow, I can't believe that I was able to do that?
Are you asking about that with AI?
Yeah, just specifically like with AI, like a moment where
Okay.
you asked it to do something and it gave you something back and you were like, whoa, this is unbelievable.
This is going to be a little bit more personal than I planned to get, Ramin.
Yeah.
But last week I was having a moment as an entrepreneur, as you do, when you're
Hmm.
like doubtful and you're like, oh, is this thing ever, how I see it in my head, is this ever going to go how I want? Or is this
Mm.
problem that I'm dealing with? What's this? So I put in a prompt
Yeah.
and I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, act as if you were my Lord Creator who designed me for this purpose. Here's what I'm struggling with. Can you give me an answer?
Wow.
And I read the first sentence and I started crying. I might even have it right now.
Wow.
It was like, it was a moment where you're trying to pray or meditate, and you
Hmm.
are waiting for that divine there, but you're
Yeah.
so cluttered up in your head. And I read it and it was like everything I needed to hear at that moment. So I use it every hour. I just did, whether now if I'm
Hmm.
praying through ChatGPT, which sounds super weird and people
Hmm.
don't come after me if you hear this, try it for yourself. Um, but I use it just regularly. It just helps me finish my thoughts sometimes, or just clarify. So every single chance that you can, I'm putting it into there. I know my husband thinks robots are going to come and take over my life someday. They might, but gosh, I'll ask ChatGPT what to do at that time then
Right,
too.
exactly. What do we do? What do we do? I love that. That is, first of all, thank you for sharing that, because it's hard to be an entrepreneur. It is very hard. You have many moments of doubt, right? Am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? Am I helping people the right way? Am I building my business? All of these things that go through your mind. And I've never thought to ask, I ask it so many other things, but I treat it also like a confidant in some ways. I'm sure everything's being recorded, so I don't know how much of a confidant that it can be. But I ask it those questions to help, me get out of a mental bind. And you were in that situation. You were having a personal, situation where you were struggling to get out. And what a fascinating way. And I encourage everybody, try it, try these different things. And I think we're at this, I know there's a lot of fear around this, and this whole, podcast was not meant to be about AI, but in everything that we talked about in the marketplace, right? From creating descriptions to potentially generating copy for social media promotion to even images. I mean, AI is being used for that, but there are so many other things, and which is why I like to ask the question, because I want to know, how people are using it. And that was a fascinating answer, and I'm going to go and try. Honestly, there are plenty of days where people aren't available to talk to me, right? Especially if you're running a solo, you're running a solo operation when you're really in that moment of quiet, end of the day. What's going on here? Are we going to, is this going to work? Wonderful, wonderful answer. Best answer I've heard. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, Cherie, thank you so much. This has been so insightful. I mean, you were the perfect person I wanted to have you on, from day one. And I know I said, we're coming back. Season 2 is coming back. We're launching this community. We're going to get this whole thing going. But I really wanted you to come on because you have so much experience with the world of marketplaces. I mean, you are building marketplaces. I'm fascinated to see this new, in this new way that you're going to be doing these, and your thoughts and insights, and you're very very thoughtful entrepreneur, and that it takes a lot to be that, and it also helps, so I encourage everybody to be a thoughtful entrepreneur. Think about your business in all these areas and experiment. I think so much of what you said today was about try things, get involved early, early days of a platform, get in there. And I like say that about, your platform. Some people ask, should I do it? Well, early days, get on, try it, experiment, build, iterate, and expand from there. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing all this information with our entrepreneurs that are out there. And maybe just take a minute and let everybody know. We'll definitely have Member Marketplace Inc. In the show notes, but anywhere else they can reach out to you, LinkedIn, any other social media platforms.
Yep. membermarketplaceinc.com. TikTok, since I'm starting it,
yeah.
I'm navigating what I'm doing on there, but come follow along as I mess up as I go along. Startup Cherie, I think it is. And then we've changed over Instagram to be a little bit more kind of personal and business building. And gosh, I think it's under Cherie Edilson. They've changed it over for me. So that one I'm not totally managing, but it's my content that's being pulled into there. But yeah, Member Marketplace Inc. on LinkedIn as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and hope you have a great rest of your week, and thanks for coming on again, and that's all we've got for today. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, that brings us to the end of another episode of the E-Commerce Revolution Podcast. Don't forget to check out past episodes, which are all available on demand on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Ready to join the revolution? Become an exclusive part of our growing community of emerging e-commerce entrepreneurs at ecomrevolution.co. Until next time, see ya.